The Forgotten Morning. The great crystal dome of the Interstellar Federation Assembly stretched high above the representatives of 47 different species, each seated according to their world's importance in galactic affairs. Bioluminescent patterns danced across the curved walls while the artificial atmosphere hummed with the sounds of breathing apparatus, translation devices, and quiet conversations in dozens of alien languages. This was where the galaxy's most powerful beings gathered to decide the fate of countless worlds. Ambassador Kethra of the Zephyrian Commonwealth sat in the elevated section reserved for elder diplomats, her 4 arms folded in contemplation as she watched the proceedings below. Her silver-scaled skin had dulled with age, but her large purple eyes remained sharp and alert. She had witnessed more galactic cycles than most beings in the chamber, and today she carried a burden that weighed heavily on her ancient heart. Chancellor Vexte of the Mordanian Empire stood at the central podium, his massive frame commanding attention as he gestured with his powerful arms. The Mordanians were a warrior race, standing nearly 3 meters tall with thick great hide and tusks that gleamed in the chamber's light. Vexte's voice boomed through the translation system as he addressed the assembly. Fellow beings of the Federation, we gather today to discuss the expansion of our territories into the Outer Rim sectors. These regions have remained empty and unclaimed for 50 standard years, representing valuable resources and strategic positions that could benefit all our peoples. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The Outer Rim sectors were indeed valuable, rich in rare minerals, and positioned along important trade routes. More importantly, they had been abandoned by their former inhabitants, a species that most Federation members had forgotten or dismissed as irrelevant. Kethra slowly rose from her seat, her movement causing a gentle chime from the ceremonial bells woven into her robes. The sound carried clearly through the chamber, and conversations gradually quieted as attention turned to the elderly ambassador. She had earned respect through centuries of wise counsel, and when she spoke, others listened. Honored Chancellor, esteemed colleagues, Kethra began, her voice soft, but carrying easily through the chamber's acoustics. Before we proceed with plans for expansion, I must remind this assembly of the true history of those Outer Rim sectors. They were not abandoned by choice, and their former inhabitants have not disappeared. A ripple of confusion passed through the gathering. Many of the younger diplomats exchanged puzzled glances, while some of the older representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Chancellor Vexte's expression darkened as he realized where this conversation was heading. Ambassador Kethra, Vexte said with barely concealed irritation, surely you do not refer to the humans. That primitive species withdrew from galactic affairs decades ago. Our intelligence reports suggest they have either destroyed themselves through internal conflicts or retreated so far into isolation that they pose no threat to anyone. Laughter erupted from several sections of the assembly. The crystalline collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a geometric form, pulsed with amused light patterns. Even the normally stoic delegates from the hive worlds clicked their mandibles in what passed for laughter among their kind. The humans were always an odd species, commented Ambassador Zelnera of the Aquatic Federation, her gills fluttering with amusement. They came to us with grand dreams of cooperation and friendship, but when faced with the realities of galactic politics, they simply gave up and went home like disappointed children. Exactly, agreed Trade Minister Colvin of the Commercial Guild. They lacked the strength to compete with established powers, and the wisdom to accept their proper place in the galactic hierarchy. Their withdrawal was inevitable. Kethra listened to the mocking comments with growing concern. She had lived through humanity's first contact with the Federation 200 years ago, when their primitive ships had arrived carrying messages of peace and offers of cultural exchange. The humans had been remarkable in their diversity, curiosity, and adaptability, but they had also been overwhelmed by the complex politics and advanced technology of the galactic community. You misunderstand the nature of humanity, Kethra said, her voice carrying a warning tone that caused some of the laughter to die down. Yes, they withdrew from galactic affairs 50 years ago, but not out of weakness or defeat. They withdrew to observe, to learn, and to prepare. Chancellor Vextai slammed his fist on the podium, creating a thunderous boom that silenced the remaining chatter. Prepare for what, Old One? They were barely capable of interplanetary travel when we first encountered them. Even with 2 centuries of development, they remain far behind the Federation's technological capabilities. Their weapons were primitive, their ships were slow, and their military tactics were crude. That assessment was made 50 years ago, Kethera replied calmly. What do we truly know about human capabilities today? When was the last time any Federation vessel encountered a human ship? When did we last receive any communication from their worlds? When did our intelligence services last successfully gather information from human space? The questions hung in the air like a challenge. Several intelligence officials in the assembly began checking their data pads, searching for recent reports about human activities. The silence stretched uncomfortably as they realized the truth of Kethera's words. The absence of information does not imply hidden strength, Chancellor Vextai said, though his voice carried less certainty than before. It simply confirms that humans have become irrelevant to galactic affairs. If they had developed significant capabilities, we would have detected them. Would we? Kethera asked pointedly. Our sensor networks are designed to detect known technologies and familiar energy signatures. What if humans have developed along different technological paths? What if their apparent silence is actually a form of sophisticated stealth? High Admiral Thexnar of the Federation Defense Force, a reptilian being with scarred hide and cybernetic implants, stood to address the assembly. Ambassador Kethera raises interesting theoretical points, but military planning must be based on observable facts, not speculation. Our long-range sensors show no significant fleet movements in former human space. Our reconnaissance probes have detected minimal industrial activity on their core worlds. By every measurable standard, humanity appears to have stagnated or declined. Your probes, Kethera said quietly, the ones that return with their data intact. How many reconnaissance missions to human space have simply disappeared without explanation? The Admiral's silence was answer enough. Several delegates began accessing their private communication devices, sending urgent messages to their home governments requesting updated intelligence reports on human activities. In the observation gallery high above the main floor, a figure in a maintenance uniform worked quietly on what appeared to be a routine repair to the chamber's environmental systems. Her name was Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Intelligence Service, and she had been operating undercover within Federation space for the past 15 years. Her cybernetic implants, hidden beneath synthetic skin, recorded every word of the debate, while her neural transmitter sent encrypted updates to a network of human agents throughout the galaxy. Sarah's earpiece crackled with a secure transmission from Admiral Marcus Torres, commander of humanity's hidden expeditionary fleet. Chen, are you getting all this? Every word, Admiral. Sarah subvocalized, her words picked up by throat sensors and transmitted through quantum encryption. Ambassador Kethera is walking a dangerous line, but she's giving them the warning they need to hear. The Zephyrians have always been wise, Torres replied. Makes me wonder if they know more about our operations than they're letting on. Back in the assembly chamber, Chancellor Vextai was growing increasingly frustrated with the direction of the debate. Even if we accept your concerns about human capabilities, Ambassador Kethera, what do you propose? Should the Federation abandon valuable territories because of vague worries about a species that has shown no hostile intent? I propose caution, Kethera replied. I propose that we attempt to re-establish diplomatic contact with humanity before we assume their territories are free for the taking. I propose that we remember the lessons of history about underestimating species simply because they are different from us. History. Chancellor Vextai laughed harshly. The only lesson of history is that strength determines survival in this galaxy. The humans had their chance to prove themselves worthy of respect, and they chose retreat instead. Their current silence only confirms their weakness. Trade Minister Colvin spoke up again, his greed overriding any concerns about diplomatic niceties. The outer rim sectors contain enough rare earth elements to power Federation expansion for the next 1,000 years. The strategic value alone justifies immediate colonization efforts. We cannot allow valuable resources to remain unused because of unfounded fears about a species that has shown no interest in defending them. The debate continued for several more hours, with various delegates expressing their opinions about human capabilities and the wisdom of expanding into their former territories. Some shared Kethra's concerns, but they were outnumbered by those who saw opportunity in what they perceived as human weakness. As the formal session drew to a close, Chancellor Vextai called for a preliminary vote on the expansion proposal. The results were overwhelmingly in favor of proceeding with colonization plans, with only a handful of elder diplomats supporting Kethra's call for caution. The motion carries, Vextai announced with satisfaction. Federation survey teams will begin mapping suitable colonization sites in the outer rim sectors within the next standard month. Mining operations will commence as soon as the preliminary surveys are complete. As the assembly began to disperse, Ambassador Kethra remained in her seat, her 4 arms wrapped around herself in a gesture of deep concern. She had done everything she could to warn them, but pride and greed had overcome wisdom once again. She could only hope that humanity would show mercy when the inevitable reckoning came. Commander Sarah Chen had heard enough. She gathered her tools and began making her way through the maintenance tunnels that honeycombed the assembly complex. Her mission here was complete, and she had vital intelligence to transmit to Earth. The Federation was about to make a terrible mistake, and humanity needed to be ready for the consequences. In the depths of space, far beyond the reach of Federation sensors, massive ships moved silently through the void. They bore no identifying marks and generated no detectable energy signatures, but they carried the hopes and determination of an entire species that had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. The humans had not retreated in defeat. They had withdrawn to forge themselves into something the galaxy had never seen before. The storm was coming, and the Federation had just dismissed their final warning. The storm unleashed. 3 standard months had passed since the Federation Assembly's fateful decision, and the outer rim sectors buzzed with activity as survey teams, mining operations, and advanced colonization fleets moved into what they believed were abandoned territories. The Mordanian Empire had claimed the mineral-rich Kepler system, while the Commercial Guild had established mining platforms in the asteroid fields of the former human colony of New Geneva. Everything proceeded according to plan until the morning when Admiral Marcus Torres decided it was time to remind the galaxy that humanity had never truly left. The Federation monitoring station at Outpost Epsilon 7 detected the first anomaly at 3:47 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Sensor technician Vrelka, a young Aquatic Federation operative, was reviewing routine scanner suites when her equipment registered something impossible. For just 3 seconds, her long-range sensors had detected a massive energy signature at the edge of the system, but when she tried to focus the scanners on that location, there was nothing there. Supervisor Kothran, Vrelka called to her superior, her gills fluttering nervously. "I'm seeing some unusual readings on the perimeter sensors." Supervisor Kothran, a battle-scarred veteran of the Hive Wars, clicked his mandibles dismissively. Probably just solar interference or debris from the mining operations. These outer rim systems are full of electromagnetic disturbances. Sir, this signature was different. It registered as artificial, possibly a large vessel or formation of vessels, but it disappeared too quickly for detailed analysis. Before Kothran could respond, every alarm in the monitoring station began blaring simultaneously. The main display screen flickered and then resolved into an image that made both operators freeze in terror. A massive human warship hung in space directly in front of their station, close enough that they could see details of its hull plating. The vessel was unlike anything in Federation databases, sleek, dark, and radiating power from systems that should have been impossible according to known physics. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Ship Retribution," came a calm voice through their communication system. I am transmitting surrender terms to all Federation forces currently operating in sovereign human territory. You have 10 minutes to comply. Supervisor Cothran's training kicked in despite his shock. He activated the emergency beacon that would alert Federation command to the crisis, then opened a communication channel to the human vessel. Captain Vasquez, this is Supervisor Cothran of Federation Outpost Epsilon 7. These sectors were declared abandoned by human forces 50 years ago. Under interstellar law, they are now open to legitimate colonization. Supervisor, Captain Vasquez replied with deadly calm. Human forces never abandoned these territories. We simply stopped announcing our presence. Your colonization fleets are trespassing on sovereign human worlds, and your mining operations are stealing human resources. This constitutes an act of war under the same interstellar law you just cited. The communication channel filled with static for a moment, then cleared to reveal Captain Vasquez on the main screen. She was a woman in her 40s with steel-gray hair and eyes that seemed to look directly into Cothran's soul. Behind her, the bridge of her ship hummed with advanced technology that made Federation equipment look primitive by comparison. How is this possible? Cothran whispered, his mandibles clicking frantically. Our intelligence reports showed minimal human industrial capacity. Where did this ship come from? Your intelligence reports showed exactly what we wanted them to show, Vasquez replied. For 50 years, humanity has been preparing for this moment. We withdrew from galactic politics not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. We knew that we were not ready to compete with established powers, so we made ourselves ready. Across the outer rim sectors, similar scenes were playing out as human vessels appeared seemingly from nowhere to confront Federation forces. The mining platform at New Geneva found itself surrounded by a squadron of human fighters that had somehow bypassed all their sensor grids. The Mordanian occupation fleet in the Kepler system discovered that the asteroids they had been mining were actually camouflaged human defensive installations. In the Federation Assembly emergency session called to address the crisis, Chancellor Vextai paced before the gathered delegates like a caged predator. His usually confident demeanor had been replaced by barely controlled rage as reports flooded in from across the outer rim. How did our intelligence services fail so completely? He demanded. How did an entire species develop advanced military capabilities without our knowledge? High Admiral Thexnar stood to address the assembly, his scared face grim with the weight of recent revelations. Chancellor, preliminary analysis of the human vessels shows technological advancement far beyond our previous estimates. Their ships employ stealth systems that render them effectively invisible to our sensors. Their weapons appear to be based on directed energy principles we don't fully understand. Most concerning of all, they seem to have anticipated our every tactical response. Ambassador Zelnera of the Aquatic Federation spoke up from her environmental tank. Admiral, what are our options? Can Federation forces defeat these human vessels in direct combat? The Admiral's silence stretched uncomfortably before he finally answered. Based on initial engagement reports, our forces are significantly outmatched. The humans are not just technologically superior. They're demonstrating tactical coordination and strategic planning that suggests they've been studying our military doctrines for decades. Dr. James Wright, the brilliant scientist who had overseen humanity's technological revolution, watched the Federation's panicked deliberations from his command center deep beneath the lunar surface. His team of researchers had spent 50 years reverse engineering captured Federation technology, studying alien physics, and developing countermeasures to every known weapon system in the galaxy. The project had consumed the resources of dozens of human colonies, but the results spoke for themselves. Admiral Torres, Wright spoke into his communication device. The Federation is requesting emergency negotiations. Should we accept their surrender offer? Torres' voice crackled back through the quantum communicator. Not yet, Doctor. They need to understand the full scope of their mistake before they're ready to negotiate in good faith. Begin Phase 2 of the operation. Phase 2 had been planned as a demonstration of human capabilities that would convince the Federation to take humanity seriously without requiring massive casualties. Across the galaxy, human agents who had been placed in key positions years earlier began revealing themselves and their true capabilities. Trade networks found their computer systems compromised by human infiltrators who had been posing as maintenance personnel. Military installations discovered that their security had been penetrated by humans who had gained access through supposedly routine cultural exchanges. Commander Sarah Chen, still operating within the Federation Assembly Complex, activated a hidden transmitter that had been built into the station's infrastructure during routine maintenance operations years earlier. Every communication device in the complex suddenly displayed the same message in dozens of languages. Humanity remembers its friends and forgives its enemies, but we will no longer tolerate being. The psychological impact was devastating. Federation leaders realized that human agents have been operating within their most secure facilities for years, gathering intelligence and positioning themselves to strike at the heart of galactic civilization. The humans hadn't just built better ships, they had outmaneuvered the entire Federation intelligence apparatus. Ambassador Kethera, watching the crisis unfold from her quarters, felt a mixture of vindication and sorrow. She had tried to warn them, but pride had overcome wisdom once again. However, she also noticed something important about the human response that others seemed to be missing. Despite their overwhelming technological and tactical advantages, the humans were showing remarkable restraint. Human forces had disabled Federation mining operations without harming civilian workers. Military engagements had been precisely targeted to destroy equipment while minimizing casualties. Even their psychological warfare was designed to demonstrate capability rather than cause genuine terror. This was not the behavior of a species seeking conquest. It was the measured response of people who wanted respect, not revenge. Kethera activated her private communication system and sent a priority message to her government. The humans are offering us a chance to resolve this crisis with dignity intact. We should take it before they decide we're not worth the effort. The crisis reached its turning point when Supreme Chancellor Mordak, the titular head of the Interstellar Federation, finally agreed to direct negotiations with human representatives. The meeting was arranged at the neutral station of Haven Point, a trade hub that served species from across the galaxy. Admiral Torres arrived aboard his flagship, the TDS Determination, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest Federation dreadnoughts. He was accompanied by a small diplomatic team, including Commander Chen, Dr. Wright, and Ambassador Catherine Reeves, a former Federation diplomat who had returned to human service when the crisis began. The Federation delegation was led by Chancellor Mordak himself, an elderly being whose species had founded the Federation over 1,000 years earlier. His translator gave his words a measured, dignified tone as he addressed the human representatives. Admiral Torres, the Federation acknowledges that serious mistakes have been made regarding human territorial claims. We are prepared to discuss reasonable terms for resolving this crisis. Torres, a man in his 60s with gray hair and calm brown eyes, studied the Federation delegation carefully before responding. Chancellor Mordak, humanity appreciates your willingness to negotiate. However, we must be clear about the nature of this situation. This is not a territorial dispute between equals. This is a reckoning for decades of dismissal and disrespect. What are your terms? Mordak asked simply. Recognition of human sovereignty over all territories claimed by humanity prior to our withdrawal from galactic affairs. Formal apology from the Federation for attempting to colonize sovereign human worlds. Establishment of new diplomatic protocols that acknowledge humanity as an equal partner in galactic civilization. The terms were reasonable, even generous considering humanity's overwhelming advantage. Dr. Wright had argued for demanding reparations and territorial concessions, but Torres had overruled him. Humanity's goal was not conquest but respect, and excessive demands would only create resentment that would lead to future conflicts. Chancellor Mordak conferred quietly with his advisors before responding. The Federation accepts your terms, Admiral Torres. We formally recognize human territorial claims and apologize for our recent actions. We also invite humanity to resume its membership in the Federation as an equal partner. We accept your apology and your invitation, Torres replied. However, humanity will be participating in galactic affairs under new terms. We will no longer be the naive species seeking approval from our elders. We are now a power that expects to be treated with the respect we have earned. As the formal agreements were signed and transmitted to governments across the galaxy, Ambassador Kethera felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about the dangers of underestimating others, and humanity had demonstrated that true strength came not from aggression, but from patient preparation and strategic thinking. The humans had been dismissed as primitive and irrelevant, but they had used that dismissal as camouflage, while they transformed themselves into something unprecedented. They had shown that silence was not weakness, that withdrawal was not defeat, and that the quiet ones were often the most dangerous when finally provoked. The storm had passed, but its lessons would echo through galactic history for generations to come. Humanity had earned its place at the table not through conquest or domination, but through the patient application of intelligence, determination, and strategic thinking. They had proven that in a galaxy full of established powers, sometimes the greatest strength came from being underestimated until the moment you chose to reveal your true capabilities. The galaxy would never make the mistake of ignoring humanity again.